4 minutes. Goes deep for Alan Scott. Gets the touch. Dale White knocks it back in. White's Dunn's there over the bar. Robbie Dunn cursing himself. He crept up there on the far post, and Dale White did well to get that ball across. And really, Dunn had a great opportunity. White does well to get past Blair. Get his cross in. There's Lewis. Ball's losing the net. No, free kick. Don Campbell on the spot. Davidson's there. Davidson with a header. Milosevic goes in deep again. Dunn's there. The header down. Davidson. Great save by McLaren. Well, that's the second brilliant save by Bruce McLaren to deny Alan Davidson. Ghosted in there as Milosevic pumped that ball again to the far post. Davidson unchallenged. And what a brilliant save by Bruce McLaren.
Rating 2nd and 9th places. Adelaide City made the best gain, moving from 7th to 5th place. In the bottom half, Sydney Olympic and St George are the big losers, both falling 2 places. Footscray has made a valuable gain, and time is beginning to run out for Brunswick Juventus.
Team South Melbourne, but this passion for footy faded when the Samaras family headed for Greece, and young Yanni turned to his other interest. Did you ever watch South Melbourne Hellas when you were a child?
Yeah. A lot of times.
The guest appearance of the giant striker swelled the Greek derby crowd to 4,500, and like most big sporting events, this included a gaggle of politicians. Federal Immigration and Ethnic Affairs Minister Clyde Holding put boot to ball, but the real interest before the game were a number of puddles on the usually bone-dry Middle Park surface. Beaten by Pontitas, counter-attack. Still Pontitas, ball bobbling around the Hellas area. Now Wright can chase. Caught in the mud. Danny Wright can score. What a mix-up in the Olympic defence. A long clearance. And Robbie Hooker and Clint Gosling got into all sorts of difficulty. So approaching the half-hour mark. Pontitas falls loose. Lee can't get it. Bicycle kick. Cosmina slid off the line. Peels back by Olympic. And it looked as though that ball might have been goal-bound. Finally, Puskopoulos goes deep. Ball not cleared. Ball for Dacos. Fires his shot. Saved by McLaren. Off the line again. Well, that's the second time in about 5 minutes that a Hellas defender has saved his team. Playing into a fierce wind in the first half, Olympic was unlucky to be a goal down, and then 3 minutes after the restart was dazzled by some Samaras magic. Free kick comes in near post. Trimboli gets another chance. Looks back. Samaras! Samaras the chip! What a goal! John Samaras, the Greek international, and what a way to celebrate his homecoming. The delicate little chip there as Gosling came towards him, and that was the mark of a class player. Salagiros, Trimboli now, waiting for support. Danny Wright's there, far post. Trimboli looks for him. Wright gets in there. Danny Wright must score. Hits the post. How did he miss that? Bruce is out. Hooker. Hooker now has players ahead of him. Knocks it square for Phillips. He gets it in. Vitalis gets a touch. Cosmina. And what a mistake by John Cosmina. What must have got into his mind there? With only the keeper to beat from 6 metres, I won't even hazard a guess as to what Cosmina was trying to do then. Puskopoulos goes short again. Phillips hooks it in. Cosmina there, misses it. Falls for Ironside. Cosmina tries the shot on the turner. That time it's gone in. Well, must have taken a deflection at the very last because the ball seemed to trickle across the line. But John Cosmina making up there for that incredible miss a few moments ago, and Olympic right back in this game. As Olympic stormed home, Hellas coach Brian Garvey opted for points before public relations and replaced Samaras with 18 minutes to go. The move brought grumbles from the terraces, but not from the Greek international.
I'm too tired, you know. This year I played 52 games, national games, Europe games. You know, I'm too tired. and I play only for, you know, the people of South Melbourne.
Indeed, Samaras had refused to accept payments for the game, and after such a fine goal, Olympic must have been left wondering when its forwards would provide the same value.
You can coach up into the 18 yards box, and we've been playing well, I think, for weeks. And probably the last 2 away games, Brisbane Lions and this one, we should have probably got 5-6 goals, and we've missed them. But you've got to keep making the chances. If we keep making them, they'll go in.
Sadly dropping to 4th place, but retaining a match in hand. Melbourne Croatia and Footscray have also made good gains. In the bottom half, the changes involve Olympic and Adelaide City, both of whom have dropped 2 places and face a struggle in making the top 5.
Trimboli, Ratcliffe's with him. Trimboli wins out. Trimboli for Wade, and another chance for Hellas. And over the bar again. Paul Wade that time. Angie Postacoglu. Socceroo teammate, Paul Trimboli. Back for Postacoglu, lovely stuff. Postacoglu gets into the box. Postacoglu, Paul Wade, finally with the shot. But wide and easy for Warwick Young. Orlando's in there. In trouble for Hellas. Was it clear or it's gone in the scramble? Is it Jeff Ainsworth, I think it was. He's acknowledging the boos from the crowd. It's Jeff Ainsworth. And just a scramble, and Ainsworth pops it in with less than 4 minutes to play in the first half. Long clearance by McLaren. Falls for Healy. Craney's with him. Cheeky back heel. Tassios. Healy. Return ball taken by Tassios. Good speed, but goalkeeper Warwick Young comes out to meet the danger. Postacoglu will try to throw it long to the near post. So, right gets a shove. Trimboli. Back for Healy or Caligeros. Healy this time. Healy! Over the bar, David Healy. And another chance goes begging for South Melbourne. Postacoglu. Trimboli clears through with him, as he has had all day. Comes back in, Tassios! Stevie Tassios, it looked as if it had gone out, but he managed Paul Trimboli to get the ball back in, and Stevie Tassios was on hand to plant the shot home. Lays it off away, long ball, Tassios the speedster. Again, the goal scorer, Stevie Tassios. Got Ratcliffe with him, beats him, does Tassios, far post, way down, Healy! 2-1 South Melbourne! Park goes wild. Wollongong will be desperate in these final 6 or 7 minutes. Great save by McLaren.
A lot of people have sort of said we won't do that well this year, inexperienced, young youth and that. But I think it's paying off already. With 1 game to go, we're on top of the ladder.
In Sydney, the stuff of goalkeepers' nightmares. And in Melbourne, flares tempered as tempers flare at an Olympic Park doubleheader.
Gillespie under pressure, it's in! The goal scored by Taliadoris. He just dwelt a bit, George Gillespie, and Taliadoris stole in and put it away. South Melbourne 1-0. 38 minutes into the second half. The ball floated in for Taliadoris. It didn't get him on the first occasion, but he flung the right boot at it and put it in the far corner. 5.5 minutes remain of regular time. South Melbourne lead, and after the fire brigade have done their work, we can get underway again. The scorer, Kimon Taliadoris. Off Jackson for a throw. Well, another one now, and it would be beyond Preston. Georgievski. Fellow striker Kim Taliadoris putting Hellas in front. "45 minutes ticks by in the second half. Playing time for stoppages."
For the two Greek-based clubs to start the Easter weekend festivities.
There'll be fewer interruptions because players will not have as many international commitments. And more importantly, the new season will not clash with the other football codes. The feeling here is if you take away the other football, you can win the all-important spectator to your game. In this case, soccer. One club keen to make every move a winning one, both on and off the field, has come up with something no other club can match: a football legend. The ace's name is Ferenc Puskas, who arrived in Melbourne 5 weeks ago to coach the South Melbourne Hellas club, hopefully back to the top of the ladder, by passing on a little bit of European skill and knowledge to the club's many talented youngsters, players such as Socceroo, Paul Trimboli, Paul Wade, Angie Postecoglou, and Mike Peterson. Puskas was captain of the magnificent Hungarian national team during the early 50s that cut a swathe through Europe's best teams, including England. Its 6-3 victory against the English at Wembley caused a sensation. And this goal by Puskas elevated the player to the status of a superstar. In 1960, Puskas etched his name forever in the annals of football history with a 4-goal burst for his club side Real Madrid against Eintracht of Frankfurt in the final of the European Cup at Lambert Park in Scotland. As we finished lunch, it seemed incredible that I could be dining in Port Melbourne with a living legend, and there wasn't one autograph hunter. But don't be fooled. This man was every bit a Pelé or a Maradona. Maybe next time he visits the Rose and Crown, things will be a little different. Because Puskas, or Pancho as he's known to the supporters, deserves it. More importantly, the National Soccer League needs people of his stature in our game. And the players at the South Melbourne club are already gaining from his experience.
It was from the free kick. Hellas take it very quickly. Tremendous header from the edge of the area, looping it over Trianides. And Peter Salakis gets his 7th goal of the season, and he signalled to the fans, "I scored it with my head." He loved that. Not a lot of animation from the South Melbourne bench. First time header, Taliadoris. Yes, clinical, Kimon Taliadoris. 2-0 South Melbourne Hellas. Resignation on the face of Phil Trianides, and Taliadoris, who loves scoring goals against Preston Macedonia, got the opener back in round 5, and he makes it 2-0 after 29 minutes. Line here at Olympic Park. All goals coming in the first half. South Melbourne Hellas 2, Preston Macedonia 0.
For a match between South Melbourne and Melbourne Croatia. Only moments after South Melbourne won the game, supporters streamed onto the field, and that's when the trouble began. Rival groups kicked and punched each other as police battled to restore calm. When reinforcements arrived, 4 people were arrested and another 4 are expected to be charged on summons. Police have described last night's violence as the worst they've ever seen at a Melbourne soccer match.
Melbourne Hellas had beaten Melbourne Croatia at Olympic Park.
As the final whistle goes, South Melbourne are the victors.
Hundreds of fans in the 9,000-strong crowd invaded the pitch after the Greek-supported South Melbourne Hellas had defeated the Croatian-backed opposition 2-1. Match officials and players were escorted from the arena moments before the trouble erupted. Within minutes, there were violent clashes on the pitch and surrounding athletic track as large groups set upon individuals. 12 police and 16 private security guards then battled to disperse the crowd as the fighting continued. Police reinforcements were called to the stadium, and one youth was arrested on charges of assaulting police and resisting arrest. As the crowd was forced towards exits, the trouble died down, with the rival fans blaming each other for starting the brawl. The home club, South Melbourne Hellas, said today its security arrangements were adequate, but Victorian police have indicated a review will be undertaken. Kyle Patterson, SBS News.
David Healy is out through suspension. The player coming in is 20-year-old Mihailakopoulos.
Well, Melbourne Croatia, they suffered their first loss last weekend. They've made 3 changes. Salakis trying to whip that one across quickly. Steve Blair! South Melbourne take the lead. The goal coming after 12 minutes. Well, Steve Blair doesn't score too many goals, but he was Johnny on the spot there. He was picked out well by Peter Salakis. So for Steve Blair, his 2nd goal of the season, and he took it so well and gave the keeper no chance. Ground cut up in that corner where all the athletic events take place. This one comes across, and Paul Wade was the player coming in. Radosh comes, touch away. Trimboli! 2-0. Kim Taliadoris was the provider, but the finisher was from Paul Trimboli. Celebrate. Joe Radosh is beaten again. Goalkeeper there touched it away. Kim Taliadoris tried the shot. Paul Trimboli changed the direction and planted into an empty net. Past Alan Davison, who's stranded on the goal line. Kim Taliadoris there, I think he mishit the shot. But certainly Paul Trimboli didn't. And scored once this season from the penalty spot in a 3-1 victory at St George. Scores here. And Melbourne Croatia are back into this match. Worked well tonight, Mike Mihalikopoulos. As the final whistle goes, South Melbourne are the victors, being engulfed now by their supporters. Ferenc Puskas can go home and say it was a job well done. The odds were against them in the 2nd half when they were reduced to 10 men. Kim Taliadoris is the player sent off. Zeljko Adzic gave Melbourne Croatia some hope in the 75th minute from the penalty spot, but in the end South Melbourne survived. The final scoreline here at a jubilant Olympic Park is South Melbourne 2, Melbourne Croatia 1.
It's the opener, it is! Gosling is beaten after 41.5 minutes, and Kimon Taliadoris, who's had some chances, buries that one, and he acknowledges the ball provided by Paul Trimboli. The header down to the feet of Taliadoris, the 1-2. Beautiful one-touch stuff from South Melbourne. One all into the path of Taliadoris, the winner! Well, the Hellas junior team stream onto the ground to hug their senior team. Kimon Taliadoris in injury time has surely got the winner for Hellas, his 2nd of the match. And it was Postecoglou combining with Trimboli, delightfully into the path of Taliadoris, and again he finishes well. Well, those fans that were whistling for the final whistle will be glad the referee didn't take any heed. Beautifully slipped. Salakis looking for the back header. It's in! An own goal from Calderon. No, it's Van Egmond. Gary Van Egmond. Wade's back header. Wade after the dummy. You bet! Jubilation on the Middle Park terraces. They're 2-0 up, South Melbourne Hellas. A half an hour into their clash with the reigning champions. Kimon Taliadoris was going to make no mistake this time. As I said, latter weeks it's either been red cards or goals for Taliadoris. That's his 8th of the season. Oh, well, it was great control. Brilliant! Disconsolate Catlin, jubilant South Melbourne. They've got Marconi on the rack. Trimboli it was, working with Taliadoris. He weaves a bit of magic in the middle. Timed it perfectly. Gomez couldn't cut off the pass and flipping it over the keeper. Peter Salakis, the top goal scorer for the season. And his 10th. A single one for him in the end. He looked up, saw Kaplan come. He had to get in quick. Team on top of the Quick National Soccer League. You couldn't ask for more as we head towards the final series. And South Melbourne Hellas couldn't ask for a better performance than the one they've seen from their team this afternoon.
Adelaide Hellas were visiting Middle Park for the first time in 4 years, with QNSL survival uppermost in their minds, while South Melbourne were looking to score and often to improve their goal difference. Paul Wade had an early chance, then on 25 minutes ended up burying his head in his hands rather than the ball in the net. Immediately after, Danny Wright blasted wide, and it was evident that the goal avalanche wasn't going to eventuate. In fact, it was Adelaide who almost opened the scoring, with Mehmet Durakovic spectacularly clearing Craig Mills' header. 5 minutes before half-time, the crowd got what they wanted. After a good build-up, fullback David Healy's cross found Peter Salakis via the head of Adelaide's Martin Doak. Salakis' 11th of the season. 2 ugly tackles on Paul Wade ended the half, with the Socceroo midfielder and the crowd pointing the finger at Richard Miranda. In an equally uninspiring second half, Adelaide probably came the closest. Billy Wright flicking over the bar, and then sub Mark Brazzali did likewise with his first touch. The Blues hung on, but without adding to their goals for column, leaving their fans to wonder if they really are championship material. Final score, South Melbourne Hellas 1, Adelaide Hellas 0.
Marconi still being pressured by Adelaide City and South Melbourne for top spot. Melbourne Croatia could have done with an extra point in Sydney. And APIA maintains that one-game break over Olympic, but has a slightly worse goal average. In the lower half, everything still points to the Sunshine Adelaide Hellas clash at Skinner Reserve in round 25. In the big match, there's a battle on in earnest at both ends of the ladder, and both South Australian clubs are in the thick of things. In Adelaide, the top 5 tries to unravel itself, with Adelaide City at home to Melbourne Croatia. And in Melbourne, a desperate struggle for survival between 12th place Sunshine and 13th placed Adelaide Hellas. As well, the big one in a soggy Sydney between APIA and Marconi, but first the NSL Cup semi-finals, with Adelaide City playing South Melbourne and Olympic against APIA. The reporters Roger Wills and Mike Hill.
South Melbourne began delightfully in the fine and firm conditions, and Taliadoris, so chance for Peterson. Players on the left. It's meant for Palatsides, chance for Salakis. Salakis gets away from Shillaby, at danger early. Zabika loose, cleared by Santrak and Tony Vidmar. Kim Taliadoris was again prominent early, taking a free kick after 15 minutes. Midway through the half, Carl Viet almost opened the scoring for Adelaide City. In fact, Durakovic has kept going. Peterson is swamped. Comes to Aurelio Vidmar. He's got players on the left and the right. Goes to Viet. Comes back to Viet. It's a goal. No, it's away. It came off the South Melbourne defender in Steve Blair. So a let-off for South Melbourne in the 22nd minute as the ball came back to Carl Viet. Both sides then received free kicks just outside the penalty area. Taken by Mike Peterson. Knocked away by Zabika and onto the side of the net. Trimboli's with him. Taliadoris, Trimboli. Just inside the penalty area. Close for Zabika. Goal! Goal to Salakis. Opening goal to South Melbourne. Urged on by the home crowd, Adelaide City were kept out by some strong defence, lost opportunities, and almost an own goal less than 10 minutes from the finish. It was a game that deserved more than a goal, with both sides willing to run and pressure their opponents. But in the end, South Melbourne took their opportunity to go through to the Cup final. Adelaide City 0, South Melbourne 1.
For the NSL Cup final. So let's shake it around a little bit. And hold it up in the air. I cannot see what's going on there. And out comes a card, and it's Melbourne.
After 2 weeks suspension, Joe Pellitsides, who filled in admirably, goes on to the substitutes bench. It was thought that Steve Georgiakis would return to the Sydney Olympic defence, but Coach Hickman has elected to stay with the lineup that secured a top 5 berth in recent weeks. In their normal strip, the all blue. Oh, great goal! Clint Gosling beaten. Kimon Taliadoris, a goal of pure class. Barrett. Edwards on the left foot again. Alistair Edwards once more. Yes! Third time lucky on the left peg for Alistair Edwards. Scores are level after 27 minutes. Touch for Peterson. It's there. Peterson being suffocated. He put South Melbourne Hellas into the lead after 70 minutes. It was a promising move from him initially. It came back to Wade, who set him loose once more. Around Gosling he went, and from an acute angle. What delight as it nestles in the back of the net. Second cup goal for Mike Peterson. But he's got this one in the final. And Hellas take advantage of that 15 or 20 minute period of domination. Some lovely service. And a nudge from Ironside sent him sprawling. Postecoglou missed a penalty in round 19 when these two sides met at Olympic Park. And I think it's Trimboli who will take the spot kick. He scored twice in the league this season from the penalty spot. Trimboli to give South Melbourne Hellas a 3-1 lead. That he does. Two goals in 3 minutes. And the Blue Army are in delight. Well, he'll have to go on his own. He's got it! Peter Salakis does get on the score sheet. And there it is, the low 5 between Taliadoris and Salakis. And those two have scored identical goals in Cup and League this season, 12 apiece in the League, 2 apiece in the Cup. And you see Perinovic going down after tangling with Hooker. So Salakis had to do it all himself and put it through the legs of Gosling half, but it was South Melbourne Hellas that took hold of the game. And Ferenc Puskas leads them to the first half of what they hope will be a double in the NSL. A tremendous game, but South Melbourne just got stronger and stronger as the match went on. To a man, every one of those players has contributed here tonight to a comprehensive victory in lifting the NSL Cup.
George, South Melbourne still with an outside chance of taking the minor premiership should Marconi slip up, but it was St George that nearly took the lead in the opening minutes, straight from the kick-off in fact, Harper putting it wide. South Melbourne though regained their composure quickly. Paul Trimboli sets up the chance for Danny Wright. It was his first goal of the season, and after 4 minutes South Melbourne are ahead by a goal to nil. Goal after 51 minutes from Peter Salakis, goal number 12 of the season. It was all South Melbourne. They needed to improve their goal difference. New way there of celebrating, as we'll see a bit later on. Kim Taliadoris has had a good season, and it was Taliadoris here getting away from the St George defenders, and 60 minutes gone. South Melbourne 3, St George 1. Well, Kim Taliadoris made his international debut earlier this year for Australia. and surely he's going to win a lot more caps for Australia. He starts the move off here, lays the ball wide, carries on running. Good finish in there from Kim Taliadoros. That's his 12th goal of the season. Watch for the celebrations between Taliadoros and Peter Salakis. Is that a low 10? Final scoreline at Lambert Park, St George 1, South Melbourne 4.
Clubs securing the double chance. Adelaide City 4th and Olympic edging out APIA on goal difference. Parramatta has a game to play against St George, while Wollongong and Sunshine will also play at a third match on Wednesday. Adelaide Hellas and Blacktown disappear from the National League, though both are vowing they'll be back. Abassar, David Seal, Kim Taliadoros and Peter Salakis can be reasonably satisfied with their seasons.
Andrew Mars getting across to cut him off. Peter Salakis beats him, and he beats Miller. The dynamo, Peter Salakis, sets the Hellas fans alight. There's the low 5 with Taliadoros, and what a classy goal to start off the preliminary semi-final. Andrew Mart's his marker. He got away from him and rifled it in from the edge of the area. A touch of the fingernails wasn't going to stop it. Peter Salakis, 13th goal of the season. Not unlucky for him. The equaliser for Melbourne Croatia, and what a final we have now. McLaren beaten. Oh, he blasts it. He, like the club he joined this season, Melbourne Croatia. There's McLaren, he's touched 2. Can he keep this one out? Oh! Buries it. A casual Talaic makes it 4. I wonder if he's feeling the effects from that heavy knock he took. It doesn't show. 4-all for Melbourne Croatia before it goes into sudden death. A lot of debate before Waratifi stepped up, and perhaps they should have chosen someone else. It's gone well wide. Well, there was much thought in the Croatia camp about who would take that kick. Finally, Waratifi got the nod, and it didn't go wide by much. Saved! Miller's kept it out! It's sudden death! Ecstasy! Bit of help from the post as well, but it was a good save from Miller nonetheless. Donnelly gives the advantage to Melbourne Croatia. That's it.
From 8th to 2nd, finishing the season with a 10-match unbeaten run. Boasting the NSL's best home record in dropping only 3 of 26 possible points, South emerged as an invigorating attacking unit. The 3 Ts, Trimboli, Salakis and Taliadoros, fed off Peterson and Wade and scored some great goals.
Sweeping it wide. Palacidi's first time header, Taliadoros. Yes, clinical, Kimon Taliadoros.
The club brought in 2 players, Durakovic, who added substance at the back, and Palacides, whose versatility, like Danny Wright's, was a bonus for the tough times. South peaked at Middle Park against Marconi, but while pleasing the home fans, they regularly failed to impress in Sydney, where goals were non-existent on several visits. Bruce McLaren enjoyed his work, and South was in the 5 for all bar 1 win.
Save from the keeper.
The body by Maxwell, and by O'Connor. Running on the right by Melita. And the lights fail at the crucial time. It wouldn't be a goal. It couldn't be claimed as a goal, because Catlin couldn't see.
1 point off the bottom, and at a ground where the Blues are virtually unbeatable. And indeed, everything went according to plan in the early going. If not for a lack of communication between a charging Paul Wade and Konbutsianis, South Melbourne could have been one up after a minute. Michael Michailakopoulos had started that move, and a few minutes later was just off target himself. But that effort proved to be a valuable practice run for Michailakopoulos. With vision and precision, Mike Peterson found the young forward at full pace. And from the same spot he'd found the keeper from a minute earlier, he made no mistake. Rather than press home its 5th minute advantage, South Melbourne then seemed content to let St George do the attacking. But for being caught a little flat-footed, Zoran Ilic could have had the visitors back on level terms after 13 minutes. 5 minutes later, it was his head that let him down, after some tenacious work from Matthew Bingley. For all St George's hard work, just before half-time, South Melbourne could have killed the game off as a contest, if not for the superb reflexes of John Phelan. Another brilliant long ball from Peterson saw Danny Wright deprived by the St George keeper. Just a minute into the second half, South Melbourne's Bruce McLaren managed to go one better than his opposite number in keeping out a Dominic Longo blast. But with Matthew Bingley inspirational, the Saints were determined to get an equaliser. It almost came as one of the NSL stars of the 90s found Vince Colagiuri on the volley. The goal, however, didn't come from anything so precise, but from an awful goalmouth scramble. Andy Harper took an air swing, having just come on as substitute, before the ball fell to the man who'd begun it all with his header from the goal line, Zoran Ilic. Having not scored in the previous 10 rounds, the cheeky number 10 didn't want to leave referee Bambridge in any doubt as to who'd got the goal. The 1-1 scoreline served to wake South Melbourne from its lethargy, and once again the Peterson-Wright combination came close. Michailakopoulos was again giving St George problems, so Ilic decided to stop him at all costs. Thanks to Ilic himself, the referee already knew his number. The game had really come alive, with substitute Peter Salakis' magic only matched by John Phelan's. With Hellas now on the rampage, the winner duly came. Overlapping fullback Angie Postecoglou had too much pace for the St George defence, and Michailakopoulos picked his spot beautifully. After breaking his senior team duck in the NSL Cup, Michailakopoulos had his 4th league goal in 2 matches. Paul Trimboli was prevented from adding to the visitors' misery by the woodwork, and Michailakopoulos side-netted his crack at a hat-trick. But thanks to him and a wake-up call from St George, the pre-game script had been followed. At Middle Park, South Melbourne Hellas 2, St George 1.
Georgie's scoring spree continues without conceding any. Wollongong City caves into Sydney, Croatia, another draw for Olympic, and Wollongong Macedonia's first NSL victory. South Melbourne displaces Marconi on top of the ladder. Remarkably, despite beating the league leaders, Adelaide City drops out of the top 5. The defending champions Sydney Olympic move into the top half at the expense of Wollongong City. There are also changes down the ladder, Sunshine moving up from 13th to 11th, and the Saints dropping from 12th to last. Competition leader up against the youthful and exciting Sunshine George Cross. The thrill started before the kick-off with 287-game South Melbourne veteran Steve Blair named the 1990 Victorian Soccer Personality of the Year. Georgie, fresh from 2 wins and a draw in its last 3 games, started proceedings exuding more confidence than Muhammad Ali, and it scored with its first punch, coming as no surprise when Craig Foster burst through the centre to set up Gary Hassler. George Cross is scoring plenty of goals, but also giving away plenty. Pumped the ball forward, Hunter was presented with his 4th goal of the summer. 2-0 to George Cross after 32 minutes, and South's proud home record seriously threatened. Urged on by the restless fans, South Melbourne found the back of the net through a Peterson-Salakis combination in the 38th minute. The linesman's flag was up, and it was a close decision. Kick which Trimboli took at the wink of an eye, and with the unlucky Talia flat-footed, Peterson had the ball in off the left goalpost to the echo of George Cross protests. The free kick appeared to be taken metres forward of the foul. Soon after half-time, Trimboli went close to chipping the keeper, but the game's 4th goal came at the City end. Troy Cranny making a tremendous run down the Albert Park lakeside, then giving Paul Wade the runaround and setting up the simplest of shots for Clarkson. Unbelievable scenes for the visitors, 3-1 up after 52 minutes. The all-out attacking policy was paying huge dividends, and when Kittner flashed through 4 minutes later, he produced a sensational save by McLaren. Any other side in the NSL would probably have put up the shutters with 30 minutes to go, and South and the good crowd at Middle Park will be pleased they didn't.
Peterson, Wade and Captain Postecoglou now seized control, and it seemed just a matter of time before South got another one back. Amazingly, though, it came from the penalty spot. Handball the decision after Talia had done well with his goal under siege. Paul Trimboli gratefully rammed home the spot kick, his 30th NSL goal, and the game's still alive. Now Hellas streamed forward, and the equaliser came with a Peter Salakis overheader from an acute angle. The jubilation behind the goal brought with it a collapsed fence as the crowd surged towards it to celebrate with the players. As the excitement and chanting continued, play was delayed for several minutes while an army of helpers rectified the situation at the southern end. When play resumed, South Melbourne continued to be more controlled, though the 7th goal might have come when Durakovic was beaten for a rare occasion by Lawrence Kidner, who hit the post. Then the little number 7 cut off a threatening move at the opposite end, with Wade, Postecoglou, Trimboli and Peterson in the good build-up. The last pass would have had Healy clear. As if there hadn't been enough to talk about, a clash of heads between Blair and Hassler left both players needing stitches and very sore and sorry in the middle of the park. Like gladiators, they continued on, the big veteran heavily bandaged and the blonde striker putting Durakovic to the test one final time. While everyone at the ground would have happily settled for 3-3, a winning goal always looked on. And while it might have come here to sunshine beyond 90 minutes, it ended up happening for South Melbourne, with Postecoglou and Taliadoris making the last gasp move forward count. A lap of honour for the unpredictable striker and remarkable scenes at the end of one of the best NSL games for years. Distressed for sunshine, though they knew they'd played their part in something more than the thriller the crowd had come to see. Final score at Middle Park, 4-3.
With 7 players who played for both clubs in action yesterday, feelings were no less intense. And as the tackles became more vicious, the question was, would any soccer be played at all? Referee Dennis Voutsinas was in for a trying day, and Angie Postecoglou was one of an eventual 7 bookings. Some sort of normalcy didn't come over the game until the first goal was scored. It came after 39 minutes when an uncharacteristic slip from Heidelberg keeper Jeff Olver resulted in a South Melbourne corner. Mike Peterson outbustled Willie Hurd on the edge of the penalty area, and his mishit shot sailed into the top corner. Well aware of his touch of luck, the Socceroo midfielder was nonetheless delighted to have scored against his old club. Just before half-time, Peterson's was the first of 3 Hellas volleys at goal in the space of 2 seconds, all with a similar result. Olver was called on to make a save after the restart. A mishit cross from Paul Trimboli gave Michael Michailakopoulos a free header, and going the wrong way, Olver had to eat his own dust to keep the Burgers in the game. They got back on level terms after 55 minutes, although there was nothing scientific about the goal. With South Melbourne's defence unable to keep out of each other's way, it was the hard work of Terry Rizopoulos in the resulting scramble which gave another former Blue, Stuart Stevenson, his chance. In his second stint at the Olympic Village, Stevenson savoured the taste of his first goal this season. With the game back on an even keel, the real drama and controversy began. 10 minutes after Heidelberg had equalised, South Melbourne frontman Paul Trimboli, hopelessly outnumbered by the United defence, knew that winning a penalty was his only chance. But even he must have been surprised at referee Voutsinas' benevolence. All the protests in the world weren't going to change the decision, and Paul Wade coolly delivered the coup de grace. Still seething, Angie Goutsoulis took out his frustrations on Danny Wright and was lucky not to get his marching orders. 4 minutes later, Goutsoulis was the man in the middle of controversy when his handball, obvious to everyone but the referee, led to a second equaliser. Terry Rizopoulos was the 3rd player in the match to have scored against his old club. Gary McDowell paid former teammate Paul Trimboli no special favours as the ugly fouls continued right up to the final whistle. Just before full time, Hellas came close to taking the 2 points, but a game that will be remembered more for its physicality and contentiousness ended in deadlock. At the Olympic Village, Heidelberg Alexander United 2, South Melbourne Hellas 2.
2 changes from the side that beat Wollongong Macedonia 2-1 last week with 6 goals. Whilst for South Melbourne Hellas, an unchanged lineup which lost 3-0 to Marconi last week. The referee for this afternoon's match is Richard Lawrence. Melbourne Croatia lying on top of the NSL table. South Melbourne Hellas in third place. Awaratifi gets proceedings underway. Davison in defence. And David Miller, the keeper for Melbourne Croatia. No, it's Butsianis. He's inside the area. A chance for Butsianis. The cross was intended for Trimboli. The chance again for Trimboli, and it's come off Trimboli's boot. An attempted Melbourne Croatian clearance. The player was Ivan Giselle, and unawares Paul Trimboli has scored South Melbourne Hellas' first goal. Always a dangerous situation for the defending side, as the attempted clearance off Ivan Giselle came off number 9 for South Melbourne Hellas, Paul Trimboli. So here's Coletta. Chance here for Michailakopoulos. Trimboli. Now Salakis breaks. Also Butsianis inside the area. Butsianis! And he scores South Melbourne Hellas second. That was a fine build-up, and don't the fans love it here at Summer Street? A fantastic build-up by Hellas. As we see Salakis and Butsianis found the angle, and his shot from the left side was strong. Salakis, a deep corner, taken easily by Paul Trimboli, the curling shot! Great effort by Paul Trimboli. He just curled it around the keeper, David Miller. His second goal, Paul Trimboli. And South Melbourne Hellas lead 3-0. Salakis to Trimboli. He only had the keeper to beat. A good, intelligent curling shot by Paul Trimboli in the right back corner, and it left the keeper, David Miller, flat-footed. On the 40th minute, Paul Trimboli scores. 3-0, they lead South Melbourne Hellas. Big crowd and happy South Melbourne supporters here at Summer Street. The side currently leads 3-0. And full time here at Summer Street. A great victory to South Melbourne Hellas. 3-0. The goal scorers Trimboli, Butsianis, and Trimboli again in the 40th minute.
Paul Trimboli put his stamp on the game in no uncertain terms, and after it he spoke to David Bashir. Parramatta, Melita and APIA Leichhardt with draws at Wollongong and Marconi. The latter is full of interest, with 3 clubs sharing the lead on 19 points, Marconi with the advantage on goal difference. They've opened up a 3-point gap to Preston, but that's where the real congestion begins, with the next 5 clubs separated by 1 point, and in form APIA in 10th place, another point back.
For the round 15 clash between South Melbourne and Melita Eagles, and a perfect advertisement for summer soccer. The breeze coming off the Port Phillip Bay. Despite an outstanding 3-0 victory over Melbourne Croatia in the last round, South Melbourne were forced to make a change for the awkward encounter against Melita Eagles. Combination. Goalkeeper Alex McPherson returns after injury, replacing Steve Maltoni. Player back to Wade, looks around, bit of room. Butsianis. Michailakopoulos, in fact, with Salakis charging through. He got the ball back from Michailakopoulos. He's a real hard worker, is Salakis. Butsianis, low ball, McPherson, brilliant. Free again through midfield. Trimboli. Michailakopoulos runs into the penalty area. Long shot from Wade. It's there. A brilliant goal to Paul Wade. It's going to be happening for a long time. But Paul Wade getting a beautiful shot in from Paul Trimboli, giving McPherson no opportunity. And after 75 minutes, the deadlock has been broken. Now watch Trimboli here. He sees Wade charging down the field. Pauses, lines up Wade, and Wade hammers it home. Look at the curving ball. A magnificent goal by Paul Wade. towards the second half, and that brilliant goal by Paul Wade, set up by Trimboli, that gave South Melbourne a 1-0 success. The goal coming in the 75th minute in very warm conditions at Middle Park. The final score at Middle Park, South Melbourne Hellas 1, Melita Eagles 0.
Confirming all the results in round 15, draws at APIA, Preston and Wollongong, an important victory for South Melbourne Hellas.
Goal bonanza as South Melbourne demolished last place Wollongong Macedonia. First half goals from Blair, his first of the season, and Steve Tassios delighted the home fans. South Melbourne have 3 members in the Australian squad. It was Peter Salakis and Kim Taliadoris that caught the eye. South Melbourne recovering after a 4-1 loss at the hands of Adelaide City last week. We're expecting a hard game against the struggling Wollongong Macedonia, who pulled one back just minutes into the second half. Adam Sandy, the goal scorer, his second of the season. South Melbourne, though, were putting a lot of pressure on the visitors. In the end, that pressure paid when Martin Burke put through his own goal to give the home side a 3-1 lead. South Melbourne were playing enterprising football, players getting forward at every opportunity. A performance, in fact, that delighted their coach, Ferenc Puskas. Wollongong Macedonia had been into the transfer market during the week. They'd signed Zlatko Nastevski from Marconi. He made it 3-2 in the second half, his first goal for his new club. 5 goals, though, in the final 20 minutes settled the issue. Peter Salakis, looking suspiciously offside, supplies the cross for Kim Taliadoris for him to score his first of 2 goals. And from that point on, it was all South Melbourne. Mike Mihailakopoulos had been brought on as a substitute. He scored his 5th goal of the season. Again, a good lay across, a simple tap in. And South Melbourne was still hungry for goals. Paul Trimboli in the Socceroos squad for these upcoming matches against Czechoslovakia was having a big game in midfield. It's he who supplies the chance for Kim Taliadoris to score his second of the afternoon. Good finishing, he looks up, curls it past the keeper at the far post. Good goal that. It makes it 6-2. Paul Wade, another member of the Socceroos squad, was playing despite a wound of 15 stitches, which he picked up in Adelaide last week. When South Melbourne were awarded a penalty with just 3 minutes left, it's Wade who steps forward to take it, now with the new nickname of Geronimo. And he steps forward, he gets his name on the score sheet with a well-taken penalty. And then salutes the Hellas faithful. Wollongong Macedonia, although buying a striker, will have to look at their defensive record. 7 goals conceded. They did pull one back just seconds from the end. Brent Thornthwaite, the goal scorer. But as for South Melbourne, it equalled their 7 goals they scored against Newcastle in 1984. At Middle Park, it finished up 7-3.
Good draws for APIA and St George, a big win for South Melbourne Hellas, and another clean sheet for Tony Pisano at Wollongong City. The National League table. Marconi go 1 point clear at the top, and Adelaide City sneak into 5th position at the expense of Sydney Olympic. I think it's curtains for Wollongong Macedonia, and Melita on 17 points are just a win out of the 5. No changes to the scorers list this week. All the big guns missed the target.
Everywhere it's a reserve, while Sunshine was fighting for its NSL survival in the opted momentarily when Joe Palatsides found the back of the net, only to descend again with the raising of the offside flag. Melbourne had by far the better of the half, but without reward. Danny Wright, who, like Palatsides, hasn't been a favourite with coach Puskas this season, continued the similarity with another disallowed goal. It was his shot come centre which created the goal. Peter Salakis was the middleman as Konbutsianis rammed it home on the turn. The 19-year-old's 3rd of the season had lifted a huge weight off South Melbourne's collective shoulders. While South Melbourne is hoping its 1-0 win, which coincided with defender Steve Blair's 300th NSL game, signals a change in its fortunes. At Middle Park yesterday for the celebration marking Steve Blair's 300th National League appearance. But heavy tartan wasn't the garb in which to beat the heat, and the massive run-through was no pushover even for the big defender. It didn't take Blair long to regain his composure and start causing APIA problems in the air. But after half an hour, South Melbourne nearly found itself behind as Shane Clinch brought out the best in Bruce McLaren. That scare elicited an almost immediate response from Hellas, and when Jurakovic found Joe Palatzidis in the area, there was no stopping the ambidextrous striker. APIA dominated the first 13 minutes of the second half, but Palatzidis was just biding his time. A reflex header was answered by a reflex save from Brett Hughes. Honours were even up until the 69th minute when referee Chris Bambridge became the centre of attention. Ange Postecoglou's foot-to-foot contact on clinch took the action to the penalty spot, where Alex Bondalo made no mistake. On a day where refereeing decisions came under close scrutiny, the second and deciding penalty of the match looked a little more doubtful. Palatzidis displayed another skill from his armoury as he made the most of a slight check from Graham Jennings. With just 6 minutes remaining, Paul Wade put it away for a 2-1 win that shores up South Melbourne's hold on the double chance. A hold that had looked decidedly shaky until the forced introduction of Joe Palatzidis into the attack last week.
Sydney Olympic and Marconi. A fortunate result for Melbourne Croatia, and Wollongong Macedonia score a good win against Preston. The top 5 is unchanged from last week, while Melita move a step closer to the top 5. Sunshine still on the bottom despite a 5-0 win, and St George back in the danger zone.
Preston get us underway, going from left to right. A very hot afternoon, the first non-daylight saving day. Temperature in the mid-20s for the 3 o'clock kickoff. On television. Ferenc Puskas coaching his 50th game this afternoon in the Quint National Soccer League. Warren Spink looking to bend it. I think some lovely one-touch stuff here. Postecoglou feeding Salakis. Trimboli got involved. Little touch from Michailakopoulos. The 1-2 falls here for Michailakopoulos, who thumped it home. Preston unable to get a look in here. Michailakopoulos to separate the teams here today. Final score at Connor Reserve, and Preston now with a tough task to take part in this season's finals, going down to South Melbourne Hellas by the odd goal.
For the home team, with Danny Wright shooting just over after 30 seconds. But it was the South Melbourne fans who were rocked just 3.5 minutes later. In a move started by Phil Stubbins, Heidelberg controlled the ball well in the blustery conditions. Stubbins got the ball back from Stuart Stevenson before tiptoeing his way through the defence to score. The scores looked to have been levelled after 16 minutes, but Kimon Taliadoris' diving header was ruled offside. That disappointment proved to be the spur South Melbourne needed as it proceeded to dominate the rest of the half. But a desperate Heidelberg defence led by keeper Jeff Olver held firm. It took a beautiful Steve Blair begun move 3 minutes after the restart to make the breakthrough. Wright passed to Joe Palatzidis, who with strength held off Gary McDowell and found an unmarked Taliadoris on the goal line. An injury-plagued home and away season had netted the striker 7 goals. The scores stayed level until the 69th minute, when Olver, who'd coped with everything up until that point, failed to handle an Ange Postecoglou drive. Palatzidis said thank you very much. Chances were rare from then on, with play generally pretty scrappy. After 82 minutes, Olver read Paul Trimboli's mind correctly to deprive him. And Gary Bratton found the top of the net right on full time. South Melbourne had made sure of finishing second on the ladder with a 2-1 win over long-time rivals Heidelberg United.
Dean gave the minor premiers a real hiding. Melita killed off Olympic, and Marconi are back on the winners list at long last. That's the final 5 for this 1990-91 summer soccer season. Melita are in, last year's champions are out, while Adelaide City and South Melbourne have got the double chance. Wollongong Macedonia earned the wooden spoon this season. Preston have got the cup final to look forward to, and for the rest, it's back to the drawing board. Congratulations to David Seal, 19 goals, and for the second successive season, he's the league's top scorer. Tony Krislovic and Ivan Kelic finished on 17.
South Melbourne won its one and only NSL Championship back in 1984. Living legend Ferenc Puskas was enlisted to return South Melbourne to its glory days. And but for Bruce McLaren, the 91 finals campaign would have begun disastrously against Adelaide City. But instead it was the Blues who took the lead through a Kim Taliadoris, Paul Trimboli combination punch.
Goes low, finds Trimboli, chance for Trimboli, goal! Opening goal to South Melbourne. A brilliant effort by Paul Trimboli.
South Melbourne's joy lasted just 2 minutes.
Looking for Beard, has to chest it down for Melita. Brilliant goal by Adelaide City. What a magnificent shot by Sergio Melita.
Another Robert Shoboff cross put South behind on the hour.
Tabai. Brilliant goal by Ernie Tabai.
If the South players were looking despondent, 6 minutes later an Adelaide slip-up put the boot on the other foot.
Ball loose and an own goal. It goes against Alex Coburn.